Hello, my beautiful noodles. Today I have a speed build for you where we will be building the school from Monster High. If you follow me over on TikTok, you know that one of my big series over there was creating the Monster High ghouls as Sims based on a TikTok filter. So I thought they need a place to go in the Sims world, so I'm going to build them their school. This was a pretty big challenge for me because I'm not very good at building in The Sims. Even when I have a reference picture, for some reason, I just can't get it right. And also because this was a big build. This was a behemoth of a build. And I've said it before, but I'll go ahead and say it again. I get very bored when I'm decorating and furnishing big builds in The Sims because it takes so long and I just get tired of it, and then it ends up looking bad. But for this one, I actually think it turned out so good. I'm very proud of how it turns out in the end. I did not get bored, and this one took me about 2.5 hours to build, and I did that all in one sitting, so I was very motivated and very inspired by this idea. To start out here, I'm just trying to get the basic shape of the school, and because it is The Sims, there are some limitations and some things that aren't exactly a replica of the real school. There are definitely some parts of that higher level that should be taller. There should probably be another fourth story in some areas, but because you can only build 4 stories in The Sims, it's not going to look exactly right. But I got it as close as I possibly could, and I think it turns out okay. I think the top level and the roofing is really where you can see those differences between a Sims build and a quote-unquote real build. I know this is a build from an animated TV show, but you can really tell where the Sims differences are in that top level in the roof. I realized pretty quickly on that I actually made this build too small, which is a first for me. I'm always making them too big, but I did make it too small, so I had to expand it a little bit just so that the proportions were going to look right and not look so cramped. I know in the show, in the movies, there's like these big coffin shaped window kind of things on the front. There's like 3 of them on each side, and I just made it way too small to ever realistically fit that, so I had to make it a little bit bigger. I also just could not find anything to replicate those coffin style windows. I searched in debug and show hidden objects for like an hour looking for something that I could use to replicate that look, and I just didn't have any luck. It made me really sad because that's one of the best parts of the school. I think it's so unique and so fun. This top level here was a little bit tricky to figure out like what rooms I needed to build and what I needed to do up here to make it look accurate, but I think it turned out okay, and I actually really love the roofing that I do here in a minute. I think it turns out so good and looks really accurate to the reference picture I was using. However, the roofing on the columns I cannot stand. I don't think it turned out very good, but I wasn't sure how to get that look that the Monster High School has. So I just used the standard octagonal roofing in The Sims for those octagonal towers. It's not exactly to how the movie is, but it was the best I could do. Everything else I tried just looked really bad. So I figured it's going to be less accurate, but it's going to look better. So I just went with that way. Roofing in The Sims 4 is like my enemy as it is. It is absolutely terrible. I'm terrible at it. I miss auto roofs in Sims 3. But especially for a build like this that is not a standard house and has some weird roof pieces and towers and all sorts of other stuff, it was definitely a pain to try to figure out how best to do this roofing. But I think it turns out okay. I do jump around a lot in this build, from like the roofing to the front to the sides to the decorating. That's just kind of how my brain was working throughout this build, so I apologize if that makes it a little bit harder to watch, but hopefully it's not too bad. So now I'm working on the front here with the front door and then this little patio area up top. I'm using this iron type fencing right now because I didn't like any of these stone options that would be a little bit more accurate, and I thought the iron would fit the vibe more, but I do change that later because I find some stone fencing in debug. And this gothic style roof trim was just perfect for this build. I think it makes it look so old and spooky like the Monster High school is, and I just think it fits so perfectly. It may not even be the most accurate to the shows and the movies, but I think it just gives that vibe so well that it had to be in this build. And coming back over to the front door again, I am working on sprucing it up a little bit, adding in an archway, moving some columns around to just make it look a little bit better. And then the front entryway in the show and the movie and stuff actually have curved stairs coming out from that front porch area. I so wish we had curved stairs in The Sims, but we do not, so I just use some regular stairs on all three sides. This top section here was another area where I struggled with using things in The Sims because they just weren't accurate to what I wanted. That top section there is actually like a stone with just like a border around it, but we don't have anything like that, so I thought this wallpaper with the like paneling was the closest thing that we had. I do love the main stone that I used on the rest of the school though. I think that turned out so perfectly and looks so good. And I also really love the windows that I used. I think they're the perfect style, and they're also the perfect size for this build. I think they fit very well in with the spacing of the build and looked really good. This may be hard for everybody to believe based on the content that I am producing lately, but I actually have never had a Monster High doll. My sister had them. I think I was like a little too old when they came out for like my mom to buy them for me as like Christmas presents and stuff, so my sister got a few for Christmas and she became the Monster High child. I've always really loved them though. I think they are so cool, and I love anything that's like a collection, especially that very specific like type of collection. Like I love the idea of monsters being teenage girls and like stylish and school. And I also really love all the movies. I think they're so funny and there's so many good puns, but I have never actually owned them. I would love to get into collecting them now, but now there's such a big scene around them that it's like super expensive to even try to get them. I'm trying to think of who my favorite would be. It might just be Frankie, but that's a little bit basic. I also really like Venus McFlytrap. My sister had that one and I thought she was very cool. Let me know if you all have ever collected them or had them as a kid, and which one is your favorite. I know there's also like the Ever After doll line that was kind of a similar idea, but it was more like princesses. Those were also very cool, but we never had any of those, so I never got really into them. For the landscaping here, I did try to stay similar to the reference photos, but I did take a few liberties because I added things like the dead vines climbing up the wall and stuff like that that wasn't necessarily in the photos, but I thought fit the school pretty well. If it's a monster school, I feel like there's gotta be some dead vines running up the walls. And I'm actually very proud of myself for doing this much landscaping, because usually when I build houses, I cannot be bothered to do any landscaping at all. I'll add in some like flowers or maybe a few rocks and a tree, but I don't usually go to this extent of making it look good and realistic. That's something I really admire about a lot of these Sims builders, is how much detail they put into their builds with stuff like from debug or just clutter items in general, and they really pack it in there and make it look realistic and lived in. And I didn't do a ton of that in this build, but I did way more than I usually do, and I think it turns out so good because of it. You can see here I'm just adding in some more little plants within the hedges to give it a more overgrown look and not so tailored, and I think that makes it look way more realistic than if it was just a bunch of hedges around the building. I didn't realize until doing this build how few landscaping items there are in the game. There's obviously more with debug and stuff like that, and we have all the basics covered, but I would really like to see some more variation in bushes and grass and more tree types. There are like not that many tree types, and they're all massive for some reason. So I think it'd actually be really cool to see like a landscaping kit potentially. I know kits are controversial, but I think that'd be really cool to just get some more trees, grasses, shrubs, stuff like that. And now I'm going to start working on the courtyard in front of the school. In the reference photo I had, it was just like a concrete walkway with some circles cut out, and I didn't want to just leave it plain like that, so I decided to add in some fencing, and I add in some flowers and some shrubbery and stuff like that into the middle to just kind of make it a little bit more detailed and not so plain. And this is another area where it is not entirely accurate to the show and movie, because I am taking a few liberties in how the walkway looks, adding in those trees and shrubberies and stuff. But I think it looks better in The Sims than just having a plain concrete walkway. I think it just adds to the look overall. I don't think it changes it at all. And I tried to stay within the vibe of a monster school, so it isn't all like bright colors and stuff like that. It is the more Victorian Gothic style, kind of dark and dreary. Now over here I'm going to be putting in the graveyard. I didn't even realize there was a graveyard at first, but then when I was looking more and more at the reference picture I had, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a graveyard, how fun. So we are going to decorate that up real nice. Here I'm just going back and decorating these little circles again. As I was talking about, I did choose more of some dark gothic looks, kind of still trying to make it look overgrown because I don't think it'd be a well-polished garden at all at this school. And just going in now and adding the dirt texture underneath all of my plants and stuff that I have to just kind of give it that more realistic look. Over here in that back corner you probably just saw, I have that massive oak tree as well as one of those really tall trees. Those do not stay there. I was playing around with the idea of putting something back there like trees, or I tried the koi pond at one point, but I just decided nope, not gonna happen. And now I am jumping back to the roof because I cannot stay focused on one section for that long. I am just going in and adding some of these roof details, some dormers to kind of give it a more realistic look. It was a pain to try to add all of these little roof details up there because they were just not snapping correctly, and it was a lot of just readjusting and trying to do it manually. But these little tiny dormers on the towers were so cute and I absolutely loved them. And then I am just also adding these spikes onto all of the roofs up there. I don't show all of them because I thought that was a little bit repetitive, but they are on every roof up there. And that is the final roof look, just to give you an idea. And now we will jump back into working on the graveyard. There were so many gravestone options. I just kind of put them all out into the graveyard to start with, and then I kind of readjust them later. I got a lot of them from the debug menu. I don't remember if there's any just normally in the game. I'm not sure. And then here are those stone fences I was talking about earlier. I think these look way better. They're in the debug menu. And I do change the color to black here in a minute to match a little bit better. But I think these match the vibe so much better than the iron fences did. I spent a lot of time going through debug in this build to try to find some accent pieces and stuff that would work. I usually don't use debug at all. I don't know why, because it's such a good resource. Everything's free. It's easy if you want to build on a budget. But there's also just lots of really good decoration and details. I found some more vines to put on the walls. I found quite a few things. So this is another section where I will be jumping around in the build, because just as I find things in debug, I want to use them. Because that is the thing about debug, is it's really hard to actually find specific items and track things down. I kind of just scrolled through everything and then picked stuff out as I found it. And then I found this bridge, which was perfect because there is a bridge between the two towers. So I was like, oh, that's amazing. And I also found these stone walls that I replaced the iron fences with, because I just like the look of those a little bit better, and they actually fit better in a circle rather than that oval shape. And now back to the graveyard again. I promise we will finish this graveyard. I know I jump around a lot, but we will get there. But first I am going to jump over here and add some flags on the front of our school. In the picture there are like tons of banners on the windows and stuff and on the towers that I really wanted to add, but I just could not find any banners like that. So those flags are all we got, but I think that's okay. And then we're just going to touch up our little courtyard here now that we changed the fences out and the shape is a little bit different, fixing the walkways and adding in a few things. I really loved these gargoyles in the front of the school. There's not gargoyles in the front of the school in the picture that I have, but I thought it was too perfect not to use. And we are finally back to the graveyard. So now I'm going to really start thinking about where I want to place all of these headstones and really make a plan and try to make it look good, but also it's not going to be conventional rows like a real graveyard would be. That's not how it is in the picture, and that's not how I feel like it would be here. I know that's not really practical when you think about what a graveyard is for, but it's also not very practical to have a graveyard on school grounds, so I don't think practicality is what we're going for here. So I am just trying to make it look good rather than being logical. They're all kind of piled on top of each other in little clusters and stuff, but there's not really any real order to it. And I am just going to go in and add some landscaping and some details. This was actually one of my favorite sections to work on. Surprisingly, it's a very small section, but I put a lot of detail into it and really worked hard on it. I added in a bunch of the thorns, some of the dead rose bushes, and then I also added some spider webs onto the headstones, which I thought was a very nice touch. And this is much more detail oriented than most things that I do in general in life, so I'm actually very proud of this. I'm also just adding in some grass as well as some rocks just to kind of make it look more overgrown and like not very kept up, and adding in some more little thorns and ivy growing up. And then I also knew there was a broken fence in debug and I really wanted that here, so we're gonna go ahead and add that in. I think it looks so cool. And we're just gonna add in a few more things and finish up with this graveyard here and do some finishing touches on landscaping, and the build is almost done. I did want to fill out these big empty areas in the courtyard between the walkways, so I do work on that here, just adding some trees in. I love the big oak tree, especially for this build. That is just perfect. It looks like an old magical tree, kind of like the Whomping Willow or something, and I just love the way it looks here. And now I'm really just adding in details, little rocks. I'll add some more flowers and greenery in also benches because I thought that these benches along the courtyard would be great places to sit and work on homework or just chat. And I also found some of these dilapidated ruins, which I thought were perfect to fit in some of the little areas there as well. Some more of the dead ivy going up the sides of the building. And now just really doing little details to make it look better. I think I could have stopped where I was, but I think these little details really do a lot to make it look really great. One of my favorite things I do here is I found little like spell books. I don't even know if they're spell books, but they looked like spell books to me in the debug section, and I just put a little stack of 2 of them on one of the benches, like somebody is sitting there doing their homework or maybe forgot it there. It's really simple, but I thought that was just so cute. I will have screenshots at the end so you can see really well how this turned out, and this will also be on my gallery. My ID on the gallery is nikkinoodlegames, all one word. It is not furnished, so if you decide to download it and furnish it, please tag me in it so I can see what you do, because I think that'd be really cool to see. I can't even imagine furnishing this thing. I don't know if the interior is even designed to be furnished, but I think it'd be really great to see it, so tag me if you decide to do that. And this is going to be really the last thing right here. I just decided to add these little lights all around the walkway so that at nighttime it's nice and lit up and it looks really pretty. I have some screenshots of it in the dark and it looks very nice. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing. I do a lot of Sims content. Hopefully we'll have other games coming soon, but right now Sims is just what's easiest for me. And if you are a fan of Monster High, consider checking out my series on my TikTok, which is at nikkinoodlegaming. Or if you just like other cozy games or other Sims content, I have some other stuff over there too you can check out. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you who are watching and subscribing. It means so much to me. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please let me know any other content you want to see, whether it be Sims or a specific cozy game that you want to see. And I hope you all enjoyed this video and that you have a great week ahead of you. With that, we're going to get into these screenshots and I will see you all next time. Bye guys!